Hello, I'm Casey Aiken. This is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Hogan and Northam announce American Legion Bridge improvements. School Board will hold public hearings next week on the school boundary analysis. County Executive Mark Elrich wants to legalize the sale of marijuana. Our update on the impeachment hearings, and the most exciting thing to happen in Potomac since the Tally-Ho restaurant opened in 1962, the Real Housewives of Potomac are arrested for assaulting a co-star. Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the past president of Progressive Maryland, Elbridge James, Maryland Young Republican National Committeeman, Evan Young, the Dean of Democratic Politics, Sam Statland, and political strategist, Susan Heltemes. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. This week, the governors of Maryland and Virginia held a joint press conference to announce a partnership to improve and expand the American Legion Bridge, dubbed the Capital Beltway Accord. The multi-billion-dollar project will seek to address the traffic bottleneck of the primary crossing between Montgomery County and Fairfax County. And as proposed, the existing lanes in both directions will be replaced by 4 new lanes each way, plus 2 express lanes in each direction. Susan, according to top reports, the American Legion Bridge has been operating beyond capacity for nearly 40 years and has seen major extensive problems on a weekly basis. But is this the right solution?
Well, it's a part of a multi-state pact, so you have to, since Virginia's going to pay for close to half of it, obviously they had to agree on something. And what I think is most interesting is it's the same plan that Hogan is backing already for the Bay Bridge. Stick with what's there, expand it, make it better. It's probably the fastest way and probably the cheapest. And something has got to get done. For any of us who go across that bridge, we all have horror stories. I'd say get it done fast.
But aren't you troubled by the fact that we're going to have these express lanes? They're going to charge outrageous sums to motorists to drive on a federal highway?
I do that already sometimes when I go over in Virginia. When I'm driving to Philly, I go on the express lane there too, and I'm very happy to pay.
You're happy to pay. So you don't see this as a regressive tax against people who can't afford those express lanes, who can't afford to have
I don't
easy
go
passes.
on the lanes that cost $40 for a trip, but I think that it is a way for people who are in a hurry to get there, and if they're willing to pay, if their boss is willing to pay, let them go for it. I mean, I know you want me to say we should do the other bridge.
I'm going to ask that. I'm going to ask that question to Sam. Sam, when the 9/11 event happened, it was exposed how poor our transportation systems were in this region. There's a total gridlock when there's an emergency going on. Isn't the better solution to this to have an outer bridge and an outer crossing?
Casey, I've supported the outer crossing for years. But I think politically it's just not going to happen because you're dealing with the preserve in Montgomery County, and in the preserve in Montgomery County,
it's sacrosanct.
It's just, pardon?
It's sacrosanct.
It's sacrosanct.
Sam,
it's just not
Sam, if Rich
happen.
Parsons was here, he'd be pulling out whatever hair he has left because he contends that the Ag Reserve doesn't have to be touched.
It doesn't.
If you go between Route 28 in Virginia and Route 28 in Maryland.
I agree with him, but there is a compromise coming down.
There is? And
yes,
what's that?
The compromise is that Route 95, Federal 95, is going to be redirected along the ICC and merge into 270 to get to the bridge, which may lead to an extension of 270 near the Ag Reserve as a second crossing. Wouldn't that be amazing?
But what I want to know is
trucks will be given brakes or no charges at all to go onto the ICC to encourage.
All right, I want to go. So Evan, you know, if the county, county executive, I'm sorry, Evan, if Governor Hogan had announced that they would be building an outer crossing, wouldn't he have sewn up political support in Montgomery County for any future elective bid he would be having?
You know, that It'd be nice if it were that easy, but we're talking about a county that elected Mark Elrich overwhelmingly, who has been opposed to a lot of the governor's transportation plans. We're talking about a county that voted for Ben Jealous by about 44,000 more votes than Governor Hogan. And, you know, if we're looking at what Hogan's future plans might be, if it's a Senate run in the future, something like that, what we're seeing in DC right now, I don't think voters are concerned about if their senators are going to back local transportation plans. They're concerned about who's going to fight the president the most.
The governor is politically astute enough not to cut himself out of your proposed senatorial race, because if he proposes an outer crossing, he's going to lose the entire jurisdiction.
And what I'll throw in is,
why would he lose the entire jurisdiction? All you have to do is sit through a traffic accident on the American Legion Bridge that ties up traffic for 10 hours to realize that we are strangling. This would be a sign of leadership.
But at the gist of your question, though, is would a crossing like that help him defeat Chris Van Hollen? You're talking about Montgomery County. Chris Van Hollen
he doesn't need to win much more than a few percentage points.
He
in
isn't going to
Montgomery.
get them.
Casey, all
Not on
politics
that
is
bridge.
local.
He's already
And the
got
people that-
Baltimore sewn up.
and-
All he would need is a few percentage points here in Montgomery County.
Politics is local. The people who get tied up in that traffic jam, for the most part, don't live in Montgomery
Oh,
County.
you
Not that many
don't
of
think
them.
there's anybody coming home
there's-
at night from their
there-
jobs in
definitely
Virginia
there
that
are.
can't make it home at night?
Yeah,
that,
like
that,
me.
that don't have to drive up 270 at night?
Absolutely.
Oh, you're
Absolutely.
That's a
but
pipe dream.
still,
What?
that's not going to happen. No outer crossing. Government won't support it.
All right.
Not if he wants to get elected.
Well, it once again shows that our
Chris is gonna win
that our
anyway.
county leadership is lacking and not foresighted.
Look, it was Mark's idea to build the bridge.
I want to
Mark's the
go.
one who
I want to
beat
go.
on him.
All right, thank you.
Didn't he? Mark beat on the governor to build the bridge.
Elbridge. Next week, next Monday, the Montgomery County School Board is going to have a public hearing on the ongoing countywide school boundary analysis. Recently, a similar analysis was conducted in neighboring Howard County, and there are several substantial resistance to the proposal. In fact, the New York Times and the Washington Post have both written front-page articles about how these two liberal counties this county is opposing school boundaries. Why is it such an issue?
It's not going to be such an issue. First of all, Howard County has 1/3 the population of Montgomery County. And in terms of square footage, it's like less than 20% are square footage of what Maryland has, or Montgomery County has. So in fact, when those boundaries got changed, there is some real, issues with regard to how those boundaries are drawn. In Montgomery County, those boundaries are going to be blocks, not miles. They're going to be blocks.
Really?
And I remember when they had
Really?
Yes, I remember when we had a boundary change in my neighborhood. For kids used to go to one elementary school, had to change and go to the other elementary school. Both elementary schools were relatively close to each other. The density population in Montgomery County is not going to make that drastic of a difference. The issue is Montgomery County going to make sure all its schools are properly prepared to educate all its children? If a parent has a problem with the quality of the education in one school versus another, they need to stand up and say, I want this education in this school to be the same as that school. And that should be where the change is.
And you think that's achievable?
Yes, it's achievable.
Well, it
All right,
depends upon...
Susan, the school board has specifically stated that it has two goals in conducting this study, and that is first to desegregate the schools, and the second is to address overcrowding in the schools. Then if Elbridge is to be believed, why is that such a problem?
It's actually called an analysis.
I know that.
Because it's an outsider doing it. Such a study's not been done in 30 years, and there are now 165,000 students. And what they are looking at is overutilization of schools and socioeconomic issues. And there is going to be boundary changes. That's different.
Correct.
Come fall, Clarksburg and Seneca Valley are going to have some boundary changes, but that's not what this do. So 6 o'clock next Monday, if people want to talk about this, and there are going to be all sorts of community engagement going on with this company from New York that's doing the study to prepare them, because ultimately there will be some changes when they build a school in Crown and rebuild Northwood and all that. So it's
you don't
just
think it's a big deal? You don't
not
think,
yet.
And you don't
We're
think,
not
and
there
you think
yet.
You have to credit the school board for being brave enough to say that we need to desegregate the schools.
They didn't use that word.
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did.
Well, they're talking about socioeconomic changes
Well,
so
The-
that
the-
it's
on
equal.
top of
the
socioeconomic
person who
change.
was conducting the analysis said the purpose was to desegregate.
Correct.
But Sam, I want to talk about school boundaries because Montgomery County delegate David Moon has introduced a bill that prohibits real estate agents from publicizing a certain school's district when marketing a house. People look to see where the house is because they want to know about the quality of the schools. Why can't that be marketed?
Things change to remain the same. I can't believe that somebody's going to be stupid enough to buy a house. When they buy the house, they know where the kids are going to school. But I can't believe that in their hearts, they don't realize that boundaries can change. In my neighborhood, boundaries
But
change.
the question
For
is,
the
why
middle
can't they
school,
market
This
that?
thing with Moon, I think, is absolutely ridiculous and a perfect example of introducing legislation that
That's
has
not
no
necessary.
merit and not necessary.
And you know what? If the realtor can't do it, everybody knows how to use Zillow. There are lots
Are
of
you
places
kidding?
that you
Right.
can go.
And it's not a matter of whether or not someone's stupid enough, or you think if it's stupid to buy a house based on where the boundary is, but it's not the state of Maryland's job to tell someone whether or not they're allowed to use that in marketing a house.
But in Montgomery
Exactly.
County, it's already banned.
Yeah,
And I think this is ridiculous because all you have to do is go and knock on the neighbor's door and find out where their kids live. I mean,
You can look it
people
up
make
online.
Yeah.
look.
All
I'm
over.
not going to drop $400,000 on a house if I think it's in the wrong school district.
Look, the
It's
point
just
is that
ridiculous.
we've got to go back to an equal education for all of our students.
And
Which
that's
means
what's-
Correct.
that the
that's
rich
gonna
guys
happen.
have got to let their kids go to school where the poor guys are so that that school is as equal to the one that they came
You know
from.
what we really need,
That's
Sam?
the
We
problem.
really need school choice. We need vouchers, and we need to allow people
Oh,
to
good God,
choose
Pete,
the
that's
schools
just-
that they want to go to.
No.
No.
Well, why not?
No.
You just like the monopoly. You like them teachers union monopoly. But people should be allowed freedom of choice in the United States to choose the schools that they want to go to.
They can pay and choose that right now. They're not going to take taxpayer dollars, in fact, to turn around and resegregate
We don't wanna
themselves
go there tonight, do we?
based on
We'll be here
their,
till
their
midnight.
wants. They're not. Well, but here's the other real danger.
We got to wrap it up.
Okay. Other real danger. University of Maryland found out that the best and the brightest that came to the University of Maryland are not prepared to deal with the citizens and residents in this country because they've been segregated and they don't know. They have cultural bias, they have racial bias and ethnic bias. We as educators, we as the top leaders need to prepare our kids so they can work with all Americans.
Well, there's a lot of problems in our schools, and we'll be addressing them as we go forward.
Will you
When
talk-
we come back from this short break, after much anticipation, the impeachment hearings have begun. Are they a success or are they a dud? Stay tuned and find out. And welcome back. Now, I'm not sure about you, but having lived through the resignation of one president, the impeachment of another, there is a certain deja vu associated with the impeachment hearings that began this Wednesday. And while the late night hosts celebrated the first day of the public testimony in the impeachment effort by House Democrats, there are those like John Podhoretz who thinks that the Democrats bungled the first day of the public impeachment hearings. Now, Evan, we're in the second day of the impeachment hearings passed today. What is your assessment of where things stand at this moment?
Well, unlike the rest of the panel, the last time there was an impeachment, I was in elementary school, so I don't remember too much from previous efforts. But I agree with Democrat Al Green when he said earlier this year, if we don't impeach the president, he's going to get reelected. I agree with AOC when this last week she said that they have to impeach the president to avoid a potentially disastrous result next year. It's interesting how the same people telling us now that Trump's guilty and he'll be impeached were the same ones for 2 years told us how Russia was working with Donald Trump and he was going to be impeached and sent off to jail for that. Funny how they don't want to talk about that anymore. So it's just the latest episode of the clown show working to remove the president before he can beat them again next year. And it's really not going to go anywhere Democrats will impeach them because they've wanted to do that since before he took office. He won't be removed from office, and he's going to actually want Nancy Pelosi to keep it up because this has been fundraising gold for Republicans. So please, Nancy Pelosi, keep it up, impeach the president.
The best
we can
thing
get all the
about
money we
being
can get.
our age is that we have experience because of our going. Look, we
That
can
experience
look
took
back
us some
and
pretty
Sam,
bad
look at
Sam,
improvements.
since you are the oracle of Democratic politics,
Yes.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
You know, the two witnesses on Wednesday from the State Department, at times they got lost in the bureaucratic weeds during their responses. Kind of boring, to tell you the truth. But it led one to believe that the whole kerfuffle is about who gets to set foreign policy for the United States. And those guys thought it was their job as bureaucrats to do so, when the Constitution may say otherwise.
Is a kerfuffle the same as a canoodle? Just asking.
No, it's not.
But today's show was really exciting. I mean, you couldn't ask for more today. The president came out with a tweet that
Tweets.
Oh no.
tweets that was very detrimental to the witnesses. It was read, and you could see the Republicans, they had to go off of their image and message and turn around, and every one of them, every single Republican on that committee apologized to how pronounce her name, please, Yanovich was being treated,
Well-
which wasn't very nice. And was it intimidating? Sure, it's intimidating because you're going up there next. Would you like to go through all that? I think these people are very brave to go up. And furthermore,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Furthermore, these are professional people in the State Department. They're really not politicians, and they're neutral. And you could
They're
see
not
that.
neutral,
So today
Sam.
was a very,
She's
very
worked on
Sam,
Exciting
have you
day.
ever worked in the federal government? I
No.
have. I've worked both as a career employee and as a presidential appointee, and I can tell you that there is no such thing as neutrality in the federal government. Susan, at one point, the witnesses were asked to identify what was the impeachable offense. George Kent didn't respond. Ambassador Taylor said he wasn't there for that purpose. Well, what are they actually doing up here, Susan?
Well, I think that was the right answer from those gentlemen. And they were trying to get him, is attempted something or other a crime. Well, that is not the reason that they're there. And if you recall,
Susan,
when
neither
Nixon,
one of them were on the phone call.
The
when
witnesses who didn't witness
Nixon
anything.
left the White
the
House,
next layer
it was
coming up.
because of a fumbled break-in. And he was in trouble because of the cover-up. It is so analogous to what's going on today. The president is incredibly guilty, and
Of what? What is he guilty of?
cover-up
Of what? What did he cover up?
everything.
covered up
Nobody's
and-
nobody's able
What
to
is he
prove it.
covered up?
You can't come to testify. He won't release documents. He won't let his taxes out. If that isn't cover up, an obstruction of
No, no,
justice.
What is
no.
it, the
But not
obstruction?
releasing taxes isn't.
The fact that
Everything.
he's asserting executive privilege is a cover up?
No,
He
his
covered up going
taxes-
to a foreign country and intimidating the president of that country
Sam,
for the exchange of dollars and weapons.
Sam, are you aware?
That's intimidation.
Sam, are you aware that the prime minister of the Ukraine said that did not occur?
Yes,
And are
because
you
he
awa-
was
and are you awa-
intimidated.
Are you aware that the foreign minister yesterday said the same thing? So where
The foreign minister isn't the president.
So where
the president said it was true.
No, he
was-
didn't.
Yes, he
was
did.
tainted.
So Elbridge,
Mulvaney came out and said, yeah, we did it.
We do it all the
Yeah,
time.
we do it all the time.
And the
Come on, you
president
can't
said he
forget
did.
that.
How do you,
Everybody-
what are you
That's-
going to do
that's
with
number
that?
one.
It's becoming a joke.
So
Plus-
do,
plus
do-
also
do you have
for-
any idea how foreign policy is conducted? You think it's all niceties? Do you think that is
joke, though, that they are
do you
going
think
after
that you
Bu-
talk to the prime minister of Germany and you say, Angela, if you don't put up money for NATO, we're not going to pay. You don't think that's intimidation?
Because
Wait,
she's
wait,
a
wait,
woman
that's
and we
NATO.
know
That's
That
not your
was
political.
part of a
That's not your political
negotiation
opponent now.
to have
That's
all
number
NATO
one.
partners
No, wait a minute.
pay.
No,
But let me
no,
ask
no,
you a
but-
question,
wait,
Albert.
no, wait a
Albert,
minute,
let me,
okay,
before- let me ask you. Yanovich was asked today. She was asked that during her confirmation hearing, she was expecting to be asked about the conflict of interest between Hunter Biden and Burisma and what was going on in Ukraine. And she answered, yes, They were aware that there was an appearance of a conflict of interest. So why is that off limits to President Trump?
Then we should
Why
be able
can't
to
he
protect
ask about
his
it?
children who do it in
because that was
spades.
investigated and found not to be the case. That's number one. Number two, you talk about the president setting policy. Presidents do not set the policy. You have your personal lawyer come to a country and the professionals are told you have to subjugate yourself to the
That's right.
personal lawyer.
And
So,
his-
Elbridge, did you ever hear of a man named Harry Hopkins? Do you know who he was?
Understand, I know who Harry Hopkins is.
You know, where did Harry Hopkins live, Elbridge? He lived in the White House with Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
In a different time, in a different era.
Okay.
With different laws.
That's a different time.
Different time, different era.
That's right.
Different
He was a
laws.
Democrat, and so it's a different time.
different
and
time,
a different
different
place.
era.
But you know what?
different
There
laws.
wasn't a real.
Thank you, Susan. We have to cut it off because we're going to party shots. And welcome back. Boy, was that a lively discussion. Sam Statland, your party shot.
My parting shot is really kind of a little bit of an obituary for Dorothy Dworkin, who passed away yesterday at age 108. One of the few centenarians that we had in the county. Just a wonderful lady, very, very sharp. We'll all miss Dorothy Dworkin.
Thank you, Sam. Susan Heltemes, your parting shot.
On Wednesday, Peter Franchot, the comptroller, came to the District 18 Breakfast Club, and on Tuesday he'd been at a breakfast with Howard County business people. And surprise, surprise, he said the same things. And he is going to be a formidable candidate. He goes in, says what he wants. He's not going to fake it and change it to each audience. And he has some interesting ideas. And he's going to be maybe one of 13, but I think that Peter is going to be a leading candidate for governor for the Democrats next time.
Thank you, Susan. Elbridge James, your parting shot.
For those who do not believe climate is warming, look at Venice and look at the problems that they're having in Venice. And all of it's man-made, whether reconstruction of the walls and this and that nature or the rising seawall. If you think that's not important, turn around and go to Miami and go to South Miami and you can see the same rising water levels. We've got to do something about climate awareness.
Thank you, Elbridge. Evan Young, your parting shot.
So it's November, the weather outside's getting a little frightful, and that means we are a year away from Election Day 2020. Last week at the Young Republican National Federation's fall board meeting, we adopted our national goals for 2020, including recruiting and growing our membership by 25% across the country, training 1 million young Republican activists and campaign volunteers and candidates, and making 10 million voter contacts across the country in the next year. So wherever you are in the next year, Young Republicans will be out there. We will be the hottest thing under the sun, not just in looks, but when it comes to action too. And next year, election night, half the country will be celebrating, and the Democrats will again be suffering a catastrophic defeat.
Thank you, Evan. Well, we proved one thing tonight. We proved that the impeachment hearings that are ongoing on Capitol Hill won't change anyone's opinion. Republicans are going to believe what they want to believe, and the Democrats will believe the make-believe that they want to believe. But the fact of the matter is, we're holding heated discussions amongst one another, and that's important that we do that. You know, there's a grave threat to our country in the fact that we are divided into certain camps. Abraham Lincoln said that a house divided against itself shall not stand. This is the one thing that we have to fear as Americans. No foreign nation will be able to defeat us. The defeat will come from within. We have to remind ourselves that we are all Americans and that we have to fight for the betterment of all Americans and stand for the betterment of all of Americans, not just certain parties, not just certain ethnic groups or people. We have to stand for all Americans and be united against all threats. For 21 this week, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. You're passionate, you show great spirit and you great intellect. I want to thank the viewers for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.